The NFL has a contingency plan to move the Rams playoff game Monday night because of the wildfires in the Los Angeles area. If the air quality continues to be unsafe, the Rams will play Minnesota Monday night at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals. No word yet on when the NFL might make that decision. The Chargers donated $200,000 for relief efforts to help people impacted by the fires. Clippers star Kawhi Leonard was given permission to leave the team in Denver Wednesday afternoon to be with his family. Leonard has a home in Pacific Palisades, one of the areas hardest hit by the wildfires. Residents in Pacific Palisades have been advised to evacuate. The LA Kings hockey game Wednesday night at Crypto.com against Calgary was postponed. The Lakers are scheduled to play at Crypto tonight against Charlotte. The NBA has yet to confirm whether the game will be played. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is for all the folks who appreciate follow-through. Here's a quick recap of the KBLA Talk 1580 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. More than 6.4 million Southern Californians viewed our climate justice billboards and bus shelters. Another 1.5 million people listened to and or downloaded our weekly conversations with African-American climate experts. Our KBLA Climate Justice web portal had 2.8 million unique visitors. Thousands more attended our 7 climate justice community events. More than 9.3 million riders saw our climate care messaging on metro buses and trains. And 39 million Americans accessed our C-SPAN Climate Justice Symposium. All told, our 2024 Climate Justice Campaign exceeded 471 million total impressions. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks all of our 2024 Climate Justice partners: LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, Sierra Club, California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., the California Wellness Foundation, MWD, AQMD, and the Port of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580. 1580.
What is the world coming to? Seems like everyone is running from the truth. We just stand up and fight, walk into the night. We're the people, we can do it if we try. Somebody ask me, why do we have to go through it? It's just a test of my faith. But we're living day to day. We don't know where, we don't know when, but it's coming back again. Oh, yes, it is. It's leading me. Oh, God, it's time for you to return. Oh, Lord, see. I know.
It's time, everybody. It is truth time with the intergalactical intellectual himself, Dr. Cornel West, and yours truly, Nina Turner. And we are so excited that you are taking time out of your day to spend time with us here on Truth Time on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. West, what you feeling, what you thinking?
Well, it's just a blessing to be here, and our prayers go out to all the brothers and sisters and siblings of all colors wrestling with these fires in Los Angeles. And of course, that's true for all folk who are suffering everywhere. We just try to keep it real on Truth Time, and it's always a blessing to be with you, my dear sister.
Back at you, Doc, and definitely ditto. Thoughts, prayers, all of that good stuff. Government agencies are being activated as we speak. Mayor Karen Bass has been setting the record straight, Doc, with some of the lies that have been told. She didn't cut the budget by 17 million, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody who knows Mayor Karen Bass, formerly Congresswoman Karen Bass, they know that she cares very, very deeply. And as Brother Tavis, during his 3-hour marathon, was bringing up time and time again, it's just quite interesting how this Black woman controls the wind, the rain, the fires. I mean, she got control of everything. So since the mayor's controlling stuff like that, I want her to make universal health care happen in this country, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get some clean air, clean water, clean food, all of that good stuff. Since she got all that kind of power, I'm putting my order in, Doc.
Eliminate poverty, abolish unhousedness and homelessness, and make sure that workers are being treated with dignity.
Yeah, let's do that, Mayor Bass, because you got all them
She got all the power like
that black
that.
girl magic, baby. She got
I
it. She
tell you,
got it.
you don't see Caruso and him talking that talk. You see, it's
No,
only
not
in a
at all.
selective way do they get this righteous indignation. And when we get upset when the police not treating us right, we get upset when we get discriminated against or whatever it is. That's just identity politics. That's those people who are still angry. Ah, no, we human like everybody else.
That's exactly right, Doc. So, oh, that's our Truth Time musings. So let's share with our audience some of the things we're going to cover today. Now, President Biden says he thinks he could have beaten Trump in the 2024 election, but isn't sure if he could have completed his term. Oh, we're going to talk about that. Does the Democratic Party need to be modernized? Does it? And we're not just talking about tech modernization either. We're talking about are there some things that they could be doing differently? There's an op-ed that was written, and it was in the Griot. House passed the Laken Riley Act. How should we see immigration? And Miss Riley, college student, she was killed by an illegal immigrant. One of the first acts of business that the Republican-controlled Congress has done is to pass this act is going to bring down harsher penalties on illegal immigrants in ways that organizations like the ACLU think could violate civil liberty. So we need to talk about that. How is there a balance in terms of having a humanitarian way to have immigration reform and also recognizing the fact that immigrants in this country have some rights based on our laws? And are we going too far with this? You know, Doc, that's deep. Then we've been dealing with that for a long time in this country. This is not new. And then President Carter, his state funeral is today. And we know that President Carter, like any other leader, was very complex. But we today, Doc, want to focus in on his progressivism and his faith. Now, we will highlight some of those contradictions because life does make hypocrites of us all at some point. But our major focus in remembering President Carter will be definitely the depth of faith and progressivism that he did represent. So like we're going to dive right in. President Carter, he was 39th president of the United States. He's lying in state today. What are some of your thoughts about President Carter more broadly? And then as we narrow it down a little bit, how it links to his progressivism and his faith.
Well, first just begin with, praying for his soul and praying for those loved ones who were affected by his passing. 100 years is a long time to live in space and time. Can you imagine what the world looked like in 1924? Jim Crow, Georgia, Jazz Age, and passing in 2025. So that I salute those moments when he was a force for good. Remember, the first act he did was the part in the draft resistance that took a whole lot of courage that Bob Moses and others could come back to the United States because they knew that Vietnam was in fact unjust. There were 2.5 million Vietnamese killed. Each Vietnamese is precious just like any other human life. He stood up against Jim Crow in the South. So there was a number of things that remind me of him being a force for good. And after his presidency, of course, I think that he was extraordinary, both in the stances he took in foreign policy, especially in the Middle East and so forth. But I also remember marching against the brother and almost going to jail because of policies in El Salvador, because, of course, his support of the corrupt and unjust Shah in Iran and the crisis that generated, and similarly so in terms of the boycott of the Olympics vis-a-vis the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. There was a whole host of things that we struggled with and against Brother Carter. But at the same time, as you know, we got to keep track of the worst and the best. We got to keep track of the sunny side, and we got to keep track of the underside. And at this day, at this moment, on this day and at this moment, we want to, for me, just, send prayers for his So because he left quite a witness. It's an example for me, and I tell you what you think. See, because our society is so sick and the system is so corrupt, how does one function in such a context? And Carter is a good example of somebody who tried to be decent, held on to his sense of faith, tried to tell certain kind of truths, held on to talk about human rights, the very thing that FDR talked about in 1941. Freedom is the supremacy of human rights. He was a human rights centered president, and yet you still see structurally and institutionally all this damage that the United States did around the world, especially in Latin America and in Iran. And at the same time, him trying to stand up and be a decent human being.
Definitely, Doc, a beacon of light. When we come forward, Dr. West and I will continue this conversation about President Jimmy Carter, his progressivism, and his faith.
Speaking truth to power and to the powerless. This is Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Somebody bring out the confetti, baby!
Starting Monday, January 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 has a new midday lineup.
I'm excited.
Are you ready for Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornel West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, and E. Cordelai Corte back to back?
Oh my God.
Are you really ready for all this smoke?
I'm ready, brother.
Yes, we still have Dominique DePrima in the mornings and Zoe Williams in the evenings, but middays just got lit on KBLA Talk 1580.
We on fire.
All across America, people are talking about our new midday lineup. Starting Monday, January 6th, our KBLA 1580 app downloads are on fire because everybody's going to be tuning in.
Yes, I love you guys. You are the bomb.
Now would be a good time to hit up SMB at KBLA1580.com if you want folks to hear about your business or brand. That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. It's going up in 2025 on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's going up.
That's what I want.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin. Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now. I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, a free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get real money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
I get real cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code TOOL for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code TOOL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code TOOL.
Yeah, yo, come on.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, give us what we want. Y'all give us what we need.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
To thine own self be true. More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner coming your way right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
For sure, to thine own self be true. Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner, we are continuing our conversation about the 39th president of these United States of America, President Jimmy Carter. He's lying in state today, being recognized for being the 39th president as well he should. And Doc, we were talking about the complexities of his presidency. We're going to put a finer point on those positive points, but not disregard things that were not morally right. And a lot of times we deify folks, especially deify elected officials and men and women of the cloth. Let me say that, but the emphasis on men of the cloth. I had to put that out there. But we all have human failings. We do. Some of us more than others. And then others of us have those human failings when we got great power in our hands. And everybody, nobody is above reproach. Nobody is above being critiqued and analyzed. So in this moment, we're analyzing President Jimmy Carter, but putting a exclamation point on his progressivism and his spirituality and how those two things go together. And we talk about that a lot, Doc, not just on this show. That's a part of who we are because we come from the radical liberation tradition of the Black church. I want to share with some folks who are with us that there was an article written that really emphasized President Carter and how he brought to the fore a type of progressive evangelism is how they framed it. And that is basically, this, I'm putting my Turnerism on it, progressive evangelism is what would Jesus do? I'm just breaking it down. I'm just giving it to our folks just simply, what would Jesus do in moments of crisis, in moments of suffering, or in your terminology, Doc, what we do to the least of these. And Jesus used that terminology too. And so certainly President Carter is credited with being that type of man, again, more so post-presidency, but that he took into consideration a lot more than most presidents did, the whole notion of the least of these. And so President Carter's post-presidency eliminated these principles. So Doc, as I think about this, I kind of wonder as somebody that served in elected office myself, how do we get caught up, especially elected officials, in not having the courage to put forward that moral clarity while we are elected?
Well, as you know, it's very, very difficult because you got so many forces coming at you, so many luring carrots in the form of status, money, and then you're being pushed by those forces at the top. Because when you're in a system whose very end and aim is to reproduce inequality, and you're trying to speak to that inequality, and you can't do it by yourself, so you begin to compromise. And as you begin to compromise, you begin to move from prudence to opportunism. Prudence means you hold on to your principles, but you do compromise. Opportunism means you just opt for the next opportunity in order to stay in office. And at that point, your ideals are gone. And Jimmy Carter, I think, is a grand example of somebody who, as we said before, he's got a decency. He's got a kind of decency that Trump doesn't have, for example. He's got an integrity Trump doesn't have. He's got an honesty that Trump doesn't have. But he was still tied into various policies, from deregulating at home. It starts with the airlines. Next thing you know, we're on the way toward a neoliberalism, which ends up being a class war against poor and working people with disproportionate impact on Black folk and brown folk and indigenous folk. And then he's still heading an empire, and he's got to deal with policies in Nicaragua, El Salvador. He's got to deal with policies in Iran. He's got to deal with policies in Afghanistan. And he reproduces the worst of the empire in each one of those instances, which is a matter of corporate interest, which is a matter of geopolitical interest of the empire. And so, as you say, he's a complicated brother. And I identify with his Christian faith as a Christian, and he's a fellow Baptist too. Not too many of us Baptists who make it up to high places in the United States.
That's it. That's
Franklin and Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer Baptist, but Carter's on the vanilla side of the Baptist split, and he makes it all the way to the top. You say, "Ooh, what you gonna do, brother Jimmy? How you gonna be like Jesus up here with all these Pontius Pilates coming at you?"
Full and I mean in full effect in that way. And for me, and just kind of reconciling the struggle, because it is a struggle. Yeah. A lot of times as an elected official, I would ask myself this question: is it better to worry about the next election, or is it better to do what I can do right now, and the next election will take care of itself? In other words, sometimes elected officials are so preoccupied, and I'm not saying that President Carter was, this is a condition that all elected officials come face to face with, is the battle between doing what's right and getting reelected. And sometimes those things are in conflict. And as the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday we will recognize here very soon, would talk about, those kinds of conflict, the notion of just laws and unjust law, and that not every law is a just law, that sometimes there is a conflict between what is law and what is right. And elected officials who have to bow down to a worship at the altar of corporate interests, big money interests, they are almost always certain to choose the corporate interest route because they are owned by those folks. Those are the owner donors. Now, I hate to say this, I hate to blow minds about this, breaking news. Many elected officials answer to owner donors. And then there are others who break through and they say, you know what, I am going to do what is right, just and good for the people who elected me. And daggone it, if I don't get reelected, so be it. But I'm going to use this power very judiciously. And we see moments in President Carter's presidency, like, again, any other elected official, where he's warm with those things. But Doc, once he was out of office, I mean, a number of books he's written, Brother Tavis talked about, in his hours on air, I think he said that President Carter was the president he has interviewed the most, because he was always writing a book. But he's written several books, and especially about Palestinian rights. And if President Jimmy Carter was running today, groups like AIPAC would be coming for him.
Well, it's clear that he couldn't win today, because the issues that he would highlight would be precisely the issues that people would try to use to pull the rug from under him. Now, granted, he got slaughtered in 1980 by a right-wing Ronald Reagan, so he didn't last that long, even at that highest level. You're absolutely right. But the beautiful thing is that no matter who we are, no matter how fallen and finite we are, that we got to keep moving forward and bearing witness. And that's what Brother Jimmy Carter did. He never gave up. He never caved in, I like that about that brother.
And he has such a kind spirit. I want to move, Doc, a little bit to Habitat for Humanity. And I get so bubbled up about it, because when we talk about putting in action, for us on this show, it is to illuminate the things that can be done even in troubled times. And the whole notion of Habitat for Humanity, building homes for people who don't have them, who cannot afford them. President Carter was such a champion and bright light for that cause. And I recall, I used to work for Mayor Michael R. White, and for his 50th birthday, city of Cleveland, just let me not assume everybody knows.
The great city of Cleveland.
Great city, first Black mayor of a major city, baby, hails from Cleveland, Ohio. The land is in full effect. And that was Carl B. Stokes, baby. But we're going to put that in the parking lot.
And Gerald Levert.
Doc, you always going to bring the music to the party. I can count on you to bring the music to the party.
Never forget Gerald. Never.
Cannot forget Gerald Levert, the great Gerald Levert. So for his 50th birthday, Mayor Michael R. White wanted his cabinet, of which I was one of his cabinet members. I often call it the real White House. I worked in the real White House.
That's nice. That's nice.
He wanted us to build with him a Habitat for Humanity home. And I'm telling you, of all the great things I've been blessed to do thus far in my life and in my career, that one is always going to be in my top 10. It was quite humbling and a quite exhilarating experience to do that.
Wow. How many years ago was that, though, my dear sir?
Oh, Doc, don't get me starting to date myself now.
Oh, Lord, no.
It was a few years. I was very much tender. That's
as young as you are now. I think you were in kindergarten with your graham crackers and milk and got your hammer out on.
You are so kind, Doc. The point of sharing that story, though, that is one of the things that President Jimmy Carter brought to the fore that is still churning away to this day and helping so many, has helped and continues to help so many families be able to get into a home. And we have an unhoused, a homelessness crisis in the United States, where we have over 500,000 people at any given moment who don't have a permanent roof over their heads in the United States of America, which is a hegemon nation. And so just connecting the fact that through organizations like Habitat for Humanity trying to fill in that gap. What would it be like? How magnificent and wonderful it would be if government helped to fill that gap, and we got the money to do it.
That's exactly right. And I think when we talk about government helping, because we want to be constructive on our wonderful show here at Time of Truth Time, that it's the government empowering people, not just with these abstract programs, with these bureaucrats who have a truncated vision, but provide resources to empower the community who then build themselves houses. It's a crime against humanity that we got millions of people walking the street and don't have a house in the richest nation in the history of the world. That's sick. This is what I mean by spiritually sick. You know what I mean? How could we even view ourselves as a national community if we got these precious brothers and sisters out here of all colors who can't find a place to sleep at night? Just like we need to have public interest in common good center stage with these fires. Because we know this has something to do with ecological crisis. We know this has something to do with climate change. We can't control the wind. We can't control other forces, but we can control some of those if we accent what we have in common rather than privatize everything. And then the rich want to create their own commonality of rich gatherings, and the working and poor people out there on their own. Got to pull themselves up by their own bootstrap. You see, that's just morally bankrupt.
It is, Doc, and the facts are they don't pull themselves up. I'm young enough or old enough, depending on how you want to look at it, to remember the bailouts, big banks coming to government begging government, which is us, to bail them out, the whole notion of too big to fail. But when we bail out, whether it's the auto industry or the banks, that is acceptable. But when it comes to trying to bail out Big Mama and Big Papa and hoods all over this country, then those with the biggest titles and those with the biggest checkbooks tend to have a problem with that. We are skewed. Our morality is skewed. Our focus is skewed. But we're going to fix all of that. We continue to lay out how we can be in repair and reconciliation in these United States of America. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. When we move forward, we are going to continue this discussion.
The truth will set you free, but first it might raise your blood pressure.
I'm not driving you, man.
More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Nearly 400,000 people in Southern California are facing evacuations as uncontained wildfires kill at least 5 and destroy thousands of structures. Officials warn the death toll may rise with further searches. Investigators are revealing the New Year's Day attacker in New Orleans built 2 bombs with RDX, a powerful explosive, but they failed to detonate. The attacker killed 14 and injured over 30 by driving a truck into a Bourbon Street crowd before being killed in a shootout that injured 2 officers. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who's facing federal corruption charges, delivered his State of the City address highlighting safety improvements, affordability efforts, and proposed tax cuts for low-income residents. And the state funeral for former President Carter concluded with speeches from President Biden, Carter's grandson, and Stephen Ford. Carter, who passed away at 100, will be buried in Plains, Georgia, beside his wife. All 5 living presidents attended. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Nearly 3,000 teen drivers die in car crashes each year. Tire Rack Street Survival is a one-day hands-on driving school gives teens experience in car control through exercises that include emergency braking and skid recovery. Find a class near you at TireRack.com/survive.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NFL has a contingency plan to move the Rams playoff game Monday night because of the wildfires in the Los Angeles area. If the air quality continues to be unsafe, the Rams will play Minnesota Monday night at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona, home of the Arizona Cardinals. No word yet on when the NFL might make that decision. The Chargers donated $200,000 for relief efforts to help people impacted by the fires. Clippers star Kawhi Leonard was given permission to leave the team in Denver Wednesday afternoon to be with his family. Leonard has a home in Pacific Palisades, one of the areas hardest hit by the wildfires. Residents in Pacific Palisades have been advised to evacuate. The LA Kings hockey game Wednesday night at Crypto.com against Calgary was postponed. The Lakers are scheduled to play at Crypto tonight against Charlotte. The NBA has yet to confirm whether the game will be played. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Calling for Duncan Shannon and their client CTPP. This radio spot is entitled Ryan, KICA 2023, ISKI code XCFSO 207000, and this is a 30-second radio spot, stereo monocompatible.
The first time I tried to quit vaping, I told myself that it was like a mountain that I had to climb over. And once I got to the other side, it would be clear. But I couldn't make it over. What really got me to quit was my little sister. I saw her vaping. So I was back in the mountain, but this time she was up there with me. It's weird what you can do for others that you won't do for yourself.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that 3 out of 4 adults in the United States have a high risk factor for severe COVID-19. And Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
It is indeed a beautiful thing. Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. And if you miss any part of this show or any previous shows, please make sure that you download the KBLA Talk app. And if you are a podcast, if you listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. So do not worry. There's never a time where you will miss us. You can always find us and go back and get the stuff you missed when you weren't watching live. And for those who are watching live, Doc, I got a few folks I want us to shout out a little bit. We got some folks in there. We got Daniel McVeigh who's in there. He said there they are. Here we go with the truth. So thank you so much for that, Daniel. And then we have Martin Norwood who said, my two favorite people in one show. So many people are watching us live right now. We really appreciate that because the way that people work in their schedules, it may be hard to watch live. Lots of people are listening live, as we know. They're driving with us. But this is indeed a beautiful thing to have people interact.
That's
and talk about our show. Yeah.
And they should know that, when we raise our voices, in so many ways, we are extending their own voices, because the same kind of love, integrity, and courage poured into us has been poured into them. We're not isolated individuals out here all by ourselves. We come from our mamas and daddies and communities and churches and mosques and synagogues and little leagues and nightclubs and corners and alleys and boulevards. That's where we are. That's who we are. That's from whence we come. And so when we hear those voices like that, we say, yeah, we collectively involved, just like Mary Lou Williams Jazz Orchestra. She can't raise her voice by herself. She's going to need some Ben Webster to play some sweet stuff on that saxophone where she hit that piano, and then the rest of the voices come in. So that's a beautiful thing to hear from those voices, those folks, their voices.
It is a beautiful thing. And to all those who couldn't get to all the comments, but from time to time, Doc and I will recognize some folks. We thank you so much again for being here live with us. Doc, as we kind of finalize our thoughts about President Carter, at least in this edition of our show, I'm just really touched by his humanity as you laid out, and the whole notion of, is it really possible for those who occupy the elected ministry? See, I thought of myself as being in ministry. Not everybody thinks of it that way. That kept me grounded. This is not about me. I was just blessed to hold the power of people for a finite amount of time. Holding their power is the key, and the notion of being in an elected ministry. Now, President Carter may have not necessarily termed it that way, but it was very clear in how he moved that his spirituality and or religion and notion of a type of progressivism was weaved in. I don't know. Is it possible? I just don't see any, or I don't see many, I won't say any, many elected leaders moving with a sense of moral clarity. In other words, not being afraid to put morality first and then try to govern or move public policy in that way. I mean, is it just me? Maybe I'm missing. That's why I want to say there's nobody.
Right.
But it's very few.
And it's fewer and fewer. I always remember when Daddy King, the father of Martin Luther King Jr., gave that powerful prayer at the Democratic National Convention when Carter himself was selected. And in his prayer, you could see the tears coming down Carter's eyes, because he knew what Daddy King had been through in that Jim Crow Georgia, where Carter himself came from. And Carter's thinking to himself, can I take some of the spirit of the movement of Black freedom or workers' freedom, whatever kind of freedom, but a movement of people? If you are a politician and lose connection with the spirit of the movement of people fighting for truth and justice, you will sell out. It's just a given, because you can't do it by yourself. That system will eat you up and devour you and then spit you out. Just when Harold Washington went in Chicago as elected official, just like when you went in Cleveland, you got to go in with the people at your back, in your heart and soul, so that when the sellout time comes, you look it in the face and go another way. And that's true, not just politicians. We talking about professionals across the board. We got doctors, lawyers, professors, pharmacists. They got the same kind of choices. Are they going to remain true to the best of who they are, that's been put inside of them in terms of being tied to the spirit of the people, that prayer of Daddy King? Or are they going to go the main dominant way, which is what? Money, 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 status, status, status. Look at me. Here's some more peacocks walking around who strut, but they can't fly. We want some folk who fly. And Carter tried to get off the ground. He really did, because human rights language is a very important language that comes out of the movement of people. The Roosevelt used that language that came out of the Black freedom movement, it came out of trade union movement, that came out of a whole host of folk who were fighting for everyday people, spilling over into elected office.
That is exactly right. And when I think about FDR, I'm glad you brought him up, because I was thinking not necessarily comparing the two, but FDR, who was very wealthy, I mean, he in the ultra wealthy, in the 1%, but the way him and Eleanor Roosevelt navigated the White House, albeit not perfect, but they did navigate it in a way that did not kowtow or bend to powerful interests. And one of the reasons why they changed the rules of elections for how presidents are elected in the country is because the powerful forces on the corporatist side were sick and tired of FDR. And they tried very hard to stop him. So from the New Deal to the envisioning of the Economic Bill of Rights to how Asa Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the 60s pushed through something that very few people know about, and it is the freedom budget, or crafted the freedom budget for all Americans. And it was based on FDR's freedom from want. We're going to talk about that a lot. See, ain't nothing new under the sun. None of this stuff.
I'm so glad you brought that. I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's not new.
That's rich. We need to know more of that rich history that you're talking about that has to do with the spirit of everyday people organizing and putting pressure on these milquetoast politicians. They will move if you put the pressure on them.
That's it. Got to put the pressure on them. And the beautiful thing about Asa Philip Randolph, the first March on Washington, we're going to teach in love. First threat, Asa Philip Randolph threatened FDR in the 40s. I'm marching on you, brother.
Yes, he did.
I'm coming for you. I'm bringing 100,000 of my closest friends and frenemies.
That's
and
exactly
FDR
right.
had to wage World War II and Asa Philip Randolph. And see, you got a lot of folks who don't want the everyday people to ask elected officials for nothing. Don't ask them for nothing. Don't ask them for nothing, especially when they running. Don't ask. It just drives me absolutely crazy because voting is transactional. What you mean I'm not supposed to ask you for something? I'm not supposed to ask you for anything. I'm not supposed to ask you to push universal health care. I'm not supposed to ask you to make sure that workers have rights in the workplace, no matter where they are in the United States of America. I'm not supposed to ask you to cancel student debt, but you want to ask me for my vote. And sometimes people really buy into this absolute foolishness. But back to FDR really quickly. FDR said to the powerful interests, I welcome your hatred. And so that we need more people in the elected ministry, all these people ain't in the ministry, but I'm calling it that, to say to these powerful interests, I welcome your hatred instead of I welcome your dollar or millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's very true. And the flip side of welcoming the hatred of people who are trying to exploit working people is he had Mary McLeod Bethune and others sitting there who he had great moral and spiritual respect for. He'd rather get a smile from her than dollars from the multimillionaire because he had some character.
That part.
Just next election. It wasn't that investment in the stock market. It wasn't that dream of the next vacation on that yacht to hang out with celebrities and make you feel good about yourself or your big house here or there. No, he did have character as a member of the ruling class. He said, look, I know the ruling class. There's some greedy mother huckers up here. These are my friends. They're still human beings. I went to Harvard with them, he said. But I choose something else. I got Eleanor, whose best friends are chocolate. Harry Belafonte. We can go across the board, you see. So in that sense, never lose sight of the humanity of anybody, no matter what class, gender, sexual orientation. But at the same time, you can choose character. Biden talked about character today for Carter. Biden, look in the mirror. Genocide. Is that character?
Yeah, they can talk it, but baby, it's hard to walk it. They can talk it, but they can't walk it. Speaking of that, Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. When we come forward, we got a whole bunch more to talk about.
It's Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their program. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ow! Here they come, y'all. Here they come. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Get out the way. Ooh.
First things first with Dominique DePrima at 6 a.m. Tavis Smiley at 9 a.m. Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner at 12 noon. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Get out the way. Get out the way. Get out the way.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show at 1 p.m. The D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show at 2 p.m. A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nee Quarterly Corte at 4 p.m. Here they come, y'all. Here they come. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Get out the way. Get out the way. Get out the way.
Tune in weekdays from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for the Talk of the Town. Only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about. Here they come, y'all. Here they come.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
I'm back.
It has been a fantastic conversation about President Carter's spirituality and politics, evangelism, and politics, all of that stuff. Like we'll continue. We should continue to talk about his life, his legacy, both the good and the bad. But on today, as he is being recognized for his life, we lift him up. We lift up his family and all those who loved this man. He did a lot of good in this world, and some would be so lucky to do as much good as he was able to do on this earth for most of his 100 years. So just big ups to him. And Dr., going back to, so people are listening to us, people are watching us on YouTube, whatever mode you're using, we really do appreciate you. I want to turn very quickly to some of the YouTube comments. We got Stephen Minsky, and he said we need a new deal for the 21st century. And I totally agree with that.
No, that's real. You know, we were talking about Brother Samuel Irving Rosamond, who wrote part of the speech of the Four Freedoms in 1941. He came up with the term, the New Deal. He's the one who coined it, the New Deal. I'm not one into deal making. You see, my tradition is not deal making. I mean, it's good language. I understand that. But no, from the chocolate side of my corner of the universe, I'm into more fire that will fuel courage and compassion to make the world better. So that the New Deal, if it's a deal or a compromise, that's an afterthought. I want to make sure we got to focus on the suffering and ways in which we can overcome that suffering. And I know with all the fire taking place in Los Angeles, we just want to say to everybody, you got to choose between a poisonous fire that will fan contempt and hatred, or a Pentecostal fire that will fuel love and courage so that you can be a beacon and a witness to make the world better. Fire is used in a number of different ways. And of course, the Ohio players remind us with fire.
Talk that talk, Dr. West. And in point well taken about the term, the New Deal. And while we're on that point, we know that the New Deal had a lot of flaws. It definitely left out those of us on the chocolate side of the ledger, a lot of domestic workers and those kinds of things too. Not perfect, but certainly a courageous effort that, hindsight being 2020, we can make a lot better. How about not necessarily the New Deal, but the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights, or taking the freedom budget for all Americans as envisioned by Asa Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We could do a whole lot with that. Now, speaking of rot, Doc, so the Republican Congress has decided, they got to do something about this immigration, and not in a way that edifies. So there's an act that they passed, and it was named after a student who was murdered by an illegal immigrant. Totally wrong, all day long. Heart goes out to her family and people who loved her. But now this act will require ICE to detain immigrants without legal permission who committed thefts, even like petty thefts, petty crimes. And what the ACLU is concerned about, and other kind of civil liberties groups, is that this can be taken too far and really impede on one's civil liberties and racial profiling too.
So I think the civil liberties have the right idea. In a moment in which immigrants, and not just the vanilla immigrants coming in from Canada, Sweden, or Norway, but especially the chocolate ones coming in from Mexico, in a moment in which they're being demonized, we have to stand with them in terms of accenting their rich humanity and make sure they are treated decently and justly. Now, what that means in details, that's a longer conversation. But if people are going in with a contemptuous spirit to demonize our brothers and sisters coming in from the Mexican border, no, we got to stand against that. We have to stand against that, very much so. And so this is another effort, Republican Party, because Trump's been, selling his wolf tickets in order to gain access to office of what he's going to do in terms of his demonizing of precious Mexican and El Salvadorian and Venezuelan and other folk trying to get in. You say no. And I would say the same thing about Trump's own family. His mama came from Scotland. Don't demonize Mrs. Trump. She's a precious sister.
Please
His
don't
father
do
from
that.
Germany. He's an immigrant too.
Yeah.
And you and I have been here for 14 generations and we still defending the humanity of immigrants. How come? Because we were raised in a certain kind of way.
We understand that. We'll be back to talk more about that, or move forward to talk more about this after this.
Speaking truth to power and to the powerless. This is Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
This new dose is... nope, that's not it. The price is nowhere to be found.
Mr. Green? Hi, it's all good. We've got this.
This is not just help from a Walgreens pharmacist.
Oh, new prescriptions. Cool. Let me check to see if these are the lowest cost options covered by your Medicare plan.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
This is someone supporting you every step of the way. Chat with a pharmacist today to find help saving. This is the human kind of help. Walgreens.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do...
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
The following is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways for the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a complimentary stay in Cancun at a luxury resort, then Family Vacation Getaways may have your ticket to paradise. We're giving away a 5-day and 4-night stay to the first qualified 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You may also be eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $398. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and you may be eligible to get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $398. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431. Again, call 800-868-6431 and give us your answer.
To thine own self be true. More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner coming your way right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
That you are doing that. Doc, and I remain in about 2 minutes here. I want to raise something that Chris Jones, who was Democratic nominee for governor of Arkansas, he was not successful, but he's running to be a vice chair of the Democratic Party. And in the wake of President Carter's passing, he raises a point. He said the Democratic Party, I believe, should be fighting for working class people, should be fighting to really change material conditions. And I think that is a perfect place for us to kind of wrap this thing up in our less than 60 seconds here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I read the piece. He talked about modernizing and talked about being more in solidarity with working class. I know Brother Bernie, our dear Brother Bernie, has talked about that as well. But as long as the corporate wing of the Democratic Party is hegemonic and dominant, the Democratic Party is beyond redemption. It doesn't have the capacity to reform itself as long as those corporate elites have significant disproportionate amount of power in the party. And that's exactly what it has now. That's why I have very, very little sense of possibility of the Democratic Party, because they sold themselves down the river to their benefactors and so forth. And that's harsh. I know that's hard. And I understand the young brother talking about modernizing and so forth and so on. I just don't see it now. I can be surprised. I want to see much more evidence of the Democratic Party revolutionizing itself and becoming a people's party.
Well, it is definitely hard but true, and we want them to prove us wrong. Speaking of truth, thank you so much for joining us on Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580. We can't wait for you to come forward with us again tomorrow with the best of. Until next time.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Nearly 400,000 people in Southern California are facing evacuations as uncontained wildfires kill at least 5 and destroy thousands of structures. Officials warn the death toll may rise with further searches. Investigators are revealing the New Year's Day attacker in New Orleans built